It's time now for The Big Question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Tonight, following a poor performance from his preferred candidates in the US midterm elections, is it game over for Donald Trump? Is his political career now behind him? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome attorney and former acting defense secretary under Donald Trump, Kash Patel, former White House Chief of Staff under Mr. Trump, Mick Mulvaney, and former Republican congressional candidate for Utah, Jake Hunsaker. Jake, let me start with you. Do you think that it's over for Trump now?
I absolutely do. And it comes down to a couple of things. First of all, I have to call out that today on Veterans Day in the United States, as a Republican, I want from leaders, specifically former presidents in a position of trust, public trust, and duty to our country, to acknowledge the service of men and women who have given their lives for our country throughout the years. And right now, what I see is someone who's dabbling in petty politics today as every day. He was creating nicknames for Governor Youngkin in Virginia simply to defend the lack of a winning track record. And to me, that pettiness is symbolic of where Trump is in his own head and certainly in the mind of, I think, most Americans right now. There's no leadership there. And I'll say, secondly, in terms of, does he have a place in the Republican Party long term? As a leader, I would say no, because I want a leader who wins on conservative principles. I want a leader who wins in election cycles and a leader who will get Republicans back into the majority consistently on issues and on policies that matter to Americans. I went to Trump rallies in 2016 when he was campaigning here in Utah. He said, we're going to win so much, we're going to get sick of winning all day long. We won for a minute when we had control of both the Senate and the House in 2017. The tax code, maybe some trade policies. But since then, it's been downhill. In 2018, we lost the House. In 2020, we lost the Senate and the House. We lost the runoff in Georgia, right? Now in 2022, we see that we may not have the red wave that we ultimately need in order to progress these policies. I don't see the winning coming from a Trump post-presidential figure, and certainly not as the head of our party in the future.
Mick Mulvaney, former White House Chief of Staff under Donald Trump. Are we seeing the tail end of a political career for Mr. Trump in the way that we've seen in the UK for Boris Johnson?
No, and by the way, I don't think it's over for Boris Johnson either. Both of these gentlemen have a history of coming back. Jay's, I don't know Jay, but he's right about a couple of things. The nicknames that Trump is throwing out today are designed to sort of distract from what happened on Tuesday. Trump is a master of changing the news narrative, the news cycle, changing the national discussion. And if he's not able to do it by those nicknames, you could expect more in the next couple of days. Jay's also right that we haven't had very much winning since 2018. I was hoping to have more winning. I was hoping to be sick of winning by now. We don't have it. But none of that equals a conclusion that Donald Trump is finished. Everybody thought Donald Trump was done in 2016 when the Access Hollywood tape came out. For those of you viewers who aren't familiar with that, that's when he said he was going to grab women by the private parts. People thought his career was over after January 6th. It just wasn't. The man is down, but he's not out. There's no question that he's still got some life in him. Is it a done deal that he's going to win in 2024? No. But to say that he is out and because of what happened last week is to not understand Donald Trump or the American political system right now.
However, Mr. Mulvaney, you're speaking to us, I understand, from Florida, where there is now emerging a strong alternative to Donald Trump in Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's had a landslide victory. Of course, back in the day, Florida was a marginal state, but now it's strongly red. And he is clearly more coherent, more organized, more disciplined, and less divisive than Donald Trump. He's the real threat, isn't he?
Well, he's one of them. I've talked to a lot of my former colleagues. I was in Congress for 6 years. I've talked to them over the course of the last 48 hours. And the ones out in the nation broadly are complaining to me privately about what a drag Trump was on their race, how hard it was to win re-election with Trump sort of at the head of the party. But the folks from here in Florida were singing Ron DeSantis' praises, how wonderful it was to be on a ticket with him at the top. Those are private conversations right now, Mark, until those become public. Right now, people who are attacking Trump are people who are going to attack Trump anyway. It's the establishment wing of the party. It's the Bushes and the Romneys and the Wall Street Journals. when it becomes the middle part of the party, when it becomes the rank and file members and rank and file voters, then you'll know things have changed. You've not seen that yet.
Kash, Patel, lovely to have you on the programme as well. Former acting defence secretary under Donald Trump. You know the man intimately well. Does he look beat to you?
It's great to be with you on Veterans Day and our miss to stay on your side of the pond. Thanks for having me, and let's honor those that have fallen before us and served today. On this day, especially having served in national security roles, having served with Chief of Staff Mulvaney in the White House, I echo some of his statements. I've never seen this man defeated or anything close to that. You know, we still talk often. He is an extremely good spirit. And I'd like to just put a couple of things in perspective when they say, quote unquote, this red tsunami or wave or whatever verbiage you want to talk about didn't happen. We just retired Nancy Pelosi from as Speaker of the House. That is a monumental achievement in modern day American politics when they had the landscape in the political atmosphere poised against us. And if we win where I am in Nevada, which it looks like Adam Laxalt will do, and we win a Herschel Walker runoff, that's the Senate. Most of these candidates or most of these politicos like Paul Ryan, who is a former Speaker of the House, where he lost the Republican majority, where he lost the presidential candidate and where he lost and suffocated Russiagate investigations that I led. These are the guys that are out there saying that Trump's over. We wouldn't be talking about 230 or 235. We'd be talking about 220 in the House, maybe 210 and probably 44, 45. So, yes, there's some bad side to some of the negativity around Donald Trump, but most of these candidates were able to win across the country because they had him and were echoing America First policies that he has adjudicated across his entire career. So I have to agree that he's definitely not. He wasn't out during Russiagate. He wasn't out during Jan 6, impeachment 1, impeachment 2. And if you think he's out now, I guess that's what they want you to think, and he'll probably just come back.
Kash, Patel, many Republican supporters will have watched Ron DeSantis' impressive performance in these midterms and think, I want a piece of that for 2024.
Yeah, look, there's no question that there was a sweeping victories in Florida, and good for it. Good for Republicans for making that state hard red. But the fact remains that in the last presidential cycle, Donald Trump received 1 million more votes than Ron DeSantis just got this past week. That's a fact that you can't overcome or ignore. That's not a fact that people are talking about, but it's not one that's out there in the mainstream media. So to say that he has no weight left in places like Florida or it's diminishing, I think the ground level politics disagree. I do think Ron, there's nothing taken away from his victory. It was monumental, and same with Senator Rubio's. It was astounding to see Miami-Dade, my former home, flip as hard as they did. But those are years upon years in the making, and I just don't see that Donald Trump had no impact on that dynamic.
Jake, I'll come back to you in just a moment, but Mick Mulvaney, with the greatest respect, many people watching this will take the view that you're drinking the Trump Kool-Aid, which I would imagine is orange in colour. And the bottom line is that, yes, he's been a winner in the past, a deeply charismatic man, a very entertaining public speaker who's excellent at firing up the base. But this is a man who, notwithstanding his many gifts, is far too divisive and toxic to win in 2024. It's time to move on, Mick.
Yeah, I always laugh when people say I'm either too pro-Trump or too anti-Trump. Apparently, I've upset both folks on the left and the right by trying to call things as I see them. Look, Trump is not down. He's not out. But I've said several times, and I'll say it again with Kash listening, he may be the worst Republican candidate that we have in 2024 because the race would be about him. He lost in 2020 because he was not able to make it him versus Joe Biden. It became a referendum on him. Okay, he won that race in 2016, lost it in 2020. If he's our nominee in 2024, he could lose. I don't think Ron DeSantis could lose. I don't think many of the other younger generation of Republicans could lose, at least if the environment stays the same way. So look, I'm not picking sides. I'm not drinking Kool-Aid. I'm telling you, he had a rough day on Tuesday. But if you ask me if he's down and out, the question is no, because the man is probably the best natural politician of my lifetime, and that includes Bill Clinton. So, look, we're 2 years away. A lot can happen. It's been a rough week for the former president. There's no question about that. I think, yeah, he endorsed like 300 people and 290 of them won. But the 10 that lost were critical. We lost critical governor's races and critical Senate races. And Trump has to recognize the fact that he at least played some part in that. So, look, my point is this. We are far from being over. He's not dead, and he's not the lock that he was two weeks ago. If we had a red wave, everybody would be running for the doors because Donald Trump would be the presumptive nominee, and we're just not there. We're in a gray area right now, and will be for a couple of weeks at the very, very least.
Jake Hunsaker, underestimate this man at your peril. That's what history teaches us about Donald J. Trump.
Well, listen, I think those are all good points. Mick and Kash obviously have been on the front lines of a lot of this, but I have to say that, painting Donald Trump as some sort of miraculous comeback kid that never, stays down is a little bit inflated in terms of how we view his political prowess. He came from a very fractured field in 2016 that split a lot of that other primary vote, right? And even in the general, he was running against probably the most flawed presidential Democratic nominee we've seen in recent history. And so those are huge factors. You cannot negate or underplay the importance of, the context there politically in terms of his wins. And I'll say here, even in 2022, the wins that Donald Trump is taking credit for are personality wins, but they're not policy wins, right? This is a game that Donald Trump knows how to play. The only political game he knows how to play is a Trump game. He's not playing a philosophical game. He's not playing a policy game. He's playing a Donald Trump game. And that's why, you see him making it all about him. Even in the hours prior to polls closing on Tuesday, he was saying any losses have nothing to do with me. All the wins have everything to do with me, right? Taking credit today for Youngkin's win. This is about Donald Trump, and we see that that's not playing out. Even, in the hours ahead of Election Day, Kash was on with Bannon saying, if everyone campaigned like Kari Lake down in Arizona, we could call the election right now. Guess what? We couldn't call it right now because Kari Lake ran on one thing, Trump. She didn't run on policy. She ran on Trump. And that's a failing strategy, not only for candidates, but also for the Republican Party long term. The comeback kid narrative, I don't buy it. I think he's gotten some very good political tailwinds in the last couple of years. I don't see his relevance remaining in the Republican Party.
Kash, Patel, last word to you. Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage to the Republican Party if he continues to play dirty by, for example, calling Ron DeSantis Ron DeSanctimonious. In the end, Trump stays in the race, potentially hands the Democrats the White House in 2 years' time as a result.
Yeah, I guess I have to disagree with you. And, harkening back to the Arizona state of play where I'm at, the border state in Nevada, the reason we haven't called the race for Kari Lake is because there's 350,000 votes that the Arizona Democratic establishment has not counted because they put in a system where they didn't have enough employees and enough ink literally on Election Day. So these are fixes. These are simple everyday fixes that we can have that I think Donald Trump is talking about. And again, you can say he's out and you can say he's divisive. It's not. How is it a Republican state when they just had a Democratic state secretary of state who handles elections? You know that. It's not the senators that take it or the governor. The state secretary of state is in charge of the electorate. You know that. And am I wrong that
it's a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican governor's office? So it's not California, Kash. You know that. Listen, there could be a lot of stuff going on, but it's not a Democrat-controlled machine. Ducey is as good a Republican as you're going to find. The House is Republican, the Senate is Republican, the governor's Republican. It's just a fact. It just is. Doesn't mean it's not shenanigans. The senators are both Democrats. It's a fact.
In that case, Mick Mulvaney, can you give me your percentage chance that Donald Trump wins the nomination to run for president in 2024? What's the percentage chance in your view?
Oh, if Donald Trump runs as a Republican in a primary, his chances of winning are 95%. He could lose in a heads-up race against a couple of different people, Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, but it won't be a heads-up race. It'll be him against 5 or 6 or 10 other people, and he'll win the Republican primary. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about winning national elections. As I told the president when I was in the White House, we lost some high-profile special elections when I was in the office. I'm like, look, if we win a primary and lose the general, we're still losers. The goal here is to win races at the end, and that's still going to be the goal. So the question is not whether or not Donald Trump can be the Republican nominee. He absolutely can and likely would be. The question is, can he win that race in 2024? The answer is yes, maybe, but it could also be no. He is not a lock that he might have been, for example, if we'd had this successful red wave on Tuesday night and we didn't.
Okay, it seems to be that you think he most likely will run. How about you? What do you think about this? For example, if I could ask, either of you gentlemen, do you think that, in fact, Donald Trump will run next week?
I think he does. I think he runs, and it's because he can't get out of his own way. And so it will come at the detriment of conservative policy and conservative wins long term, unless Biden continues breaking the country at the rate that he's breaking the country. Then maybe we have a general election win in 2024, regardless of the nominee. But again, that won't be a Trump win. That will be a Biden loss or a Democrat loss because of the Democrat policies in play there. I think he doesn't get out of his own way, and so we'll have to deal with the political realities once he declares.
All right, so you think it's happening. And Kash, Patel, finally with you, do you think that Trump will announce his candidacy perhaps as soon as next week?
I mean, as of right now, I'm heading to Palm Beach on Monday, so I think he's going to announce it on Tuesday.
That's a good sign.